Welcome to Hour 7. It's very exciting for me to be back and to give another reason for hope. Energy efficiency, known as the hidden fuel. It allows us to do more with less. While we've all heard about efficient light bulbs, and by the way, we'll talk about that too because there's some even better ones that are now on the market. But many of us have wanted to go beyond that. And the opportunities for energy efficiency are way broader than just changing light bulbs. Of course, it's worth remembering that changing light bulbs and windows and all of those options, while that's important, we really have to change the laws and the global policies. And that's what the UN meeting on Tuesday, this special session, is all about. And that's what Paris next year is going to be about. But energy efficiency is, in the eyes of many experts, the single largest source of potential savings and potential reductions in global warming pollution. It's a key part of our sustainable future, from energy efficient appliances and lighting systems to industrial systems and smart meters. Energy efficiency covers a broad range of topics, but when you put it all together, energy efficiency is about powering the economy with less energy than ever before, and it's also about saving people and businesses a lot of money even as the global warming pollution is sharply reduced. So let's take a look at this reason for hope. Energy efficiency is improving globally and saving people money even as it reduces global warming pollution. Now, in the last hour, we talked about the decoupling, again that word, of economic growth with energy consumption. This is a really important set of figures here, illustrated by this graph, showing that per dollar of economic output, energy consumption has already come down dramatically and is projected to continue going down dramatically. One of the reasons this has happened is that for 150 years, we have had these artificially cheap fossil fuels, artificially because the full cost of the fuel has not been included in the price of these fuels. For example, the 98 million tons of global warming pollution that they end up dumping into the atmosphere every single day, that's really the main cause of the climate crisis. But if you just look at the nominal price, since oil was discovered a little over 150 years ago in Pennsylvania, by the way, and was added to coal as the biggest source of energy in the world, we kind of got used to these artificially low prices, and the entire industrial and business and commercial and residential infrastructure built up over the last century and a half has been extremely inefficient, because as long as we believed falsely that the price of energy was so low, every time architects and builders and carpenters faced a choice between paying a little bit more to have more insulation, better building techniques, or spend a little bit more to burn more energy, as long as the energy was thought to be so cheap, they chose that option. And so we have a lot of extremely inefficient buildings and technologies and machines and industrial systems. But starting with the OPEC embargo and the sharp increase in the price of oil, the energy efficiency has been improving. And if you look at per capita electricity consumption in the state of California compared to the rest of the United States, what a dramatic difference. Now, California's GDP growth was comparable to the US GDP growth during this period, but what California did differently is they had good leaders and they had a state legislature that actually got it. And before the rest of the country was talking about energy efficiency standards, California put them in place as a matter of state law. And so you get this divergence here. Again, the economy's still growing, just about the same as in the rest of the country, but the per capita consumption of electricity in California hasn't gone up for 40 years. Pretty incredible. And yet California, as everybody knows, is doing extremely well. So we have an opportunity in the rest of the U.S. and in countries all around the world to do very sensible, common sense type things that eliminate waste, don't interfere with economic dynamism. In fact, they improve economic dynamism, but they reduce the wasteful consumption of energy that's unnecessary because we're just throwing it away. And California has proved that case. So eventually, the nation of the United States as a whole adopted some energy efficiency standards, and boy, what a difference they have made. One of the flagship programs in this field is called the Energy Star program, and makers of appliances, washing machines, refrigerators, computers, you name it, if they achieved a very high level of energy efficiency, they were given this Energy Star logo. And so people started to look for it, and it became a big marketing tool, and in the process did a lot of good. So microwave oven here. And since 1993, more than 4.5 billion appliances that earned this Energy Star label have been purchased. This is a major success story for public policy. And as you heard just a few minutes ago, Americans have saved $200 billion on their energy bills since these efficiency standards were implemented. That is an enormous public policy success, both for the environment and for the budgets of homeowners and citizens. So energy efficiency is extremely important. I talked at the beginning of this hour about better light bulbs. And of course, a few years ago, all the talk was about these compact fluorescents, and yes, they save a lot of energy, but here's some more good news. The LEDs that are coming onto the market now are not like the LEDs that were available at a very high expense in the past. They're much better. They last longer, and you don't have to change them. They use less energy, and again, your electricity bills go down when you put these LEDs in. And it's a simple matter, and by the way, it creates a lot of jobs. And that's another important aspect of energy efficiency. You don't see robots that are capable, yet anyway, of going into buildings and replacing light bulbs. These are jobs that country by country cannot be outsourced to some other country. They put people to work right in the community, and they're typically good paying jobs. And so it's not just changing out for very efficient LEDs. It's also about some of the other options that we'll see here. Putting more insulation in. It always pays for itself. Putting better windows in that don't let the heat stream out in the winter, that don't let the cooling stream out in the summer. Again, the bills go down. And in some countries, like in Scandinavia, for example, there are now some much stronger energy efficiency standards that call for zero carbon buildings. And as a matter of fact, these programs are very popular in the countries where they've been implemented because, again, people save a huge amount of money. Look at these light bulbs. Within less than 10 years, the estimate is that 94%, almost all of the newly installed street lights are going to be LEDs. And why wouldn't they be LEDs? Because the The city government and the taxpayers are going to save an enormous amount of money because of the sharp reduction in electricity bills. In some countries, you see the widespread use of solar hot water heaters. They save money almost everywhere they are used. They haven't been as popular in the United States, but in a country like Greece, you just see them on practically every structure because it's caught on. And now increasingly people are using these solar hot water heaters. Now these are different from the kinds of solar panels that produce electricity. They just heat up the water, and then it can be heated further if you want, but you've already saved a huge amount of electricity. And if you take a country like India, where, and there are many examples of this, where the building standards have for a long time not involved energy efficiency much at all, again, that problem becomes an enormous opportunity. The nation of India, it's estimated, could save $42 billion per year with enhanced energy efficiency. Just look at the buildings alone. The estimates are that up to 25% of all the global warming pollution being put out by the entire world is due to very inefficient buildings. Now, if you look forward at how much new building is going to take place, we'll look at an example in China. It obviously makes sense to get energy efficiency standards in place when all of these new buildings are about to be built. In India, let me go back one here. These are the states in India that are leading the way in implementing building efficiency standards. So a lot is going on. And it is not only the buildings themselves, it is also in industrial buildings, the processes inside the buildings. Things that somebody who's not an architect or an engineer like me, I'm not obviously, but it really is enlightening to hear these engineers talk about the incredible savings they can achieve by redesigning systems of pipes and pumps and electric motors. Here's a quick example. A lot of times in factories, electric motors have work to do that requires a lot of energy, but then they need less energy for some of the work they have to do. But the old style electric motors just get spun up and they're going and going at full speed, and if only a little bit of the electricity is needed, they're still pumping out a lot. So somebody came up with a variable speed motor, and it's not particularly expensive. It just requires the engineers to think through the process of how to get it done. Enormous savings. And in piping systems, instead of having all of these right angles that are unnecessary, if they just redesign them, again, an incredible amount of savings involved. So I mentioned that we're on the cusp of a new wave of municipal building. The square footage of buildings in China is going to nearly triple over the next 16 years. Unbelievable. Those of you who've been to Beijing or Shanghai have seen all the building cranes. So it's really important that China is now also beginning to enforce efficiency standards for the construction of buildings and for appliance efficiency, and to introduce incentives for people to buy and use the right technologies. Again, this is jobs intensive because people are installing the better insulation and windows. And the retrofit market is estimated to be the recipient of global investment just in commercial building retrofits in the next 10 years, less than 10 years, of almost $960 billion. This is a huge market, and it creates a lot of jobs. And a lot of it's very simple. Again, insulating the pipes and not just the walls, insulating the windows, and importantly, using architecture to redesign buildings so you take advantage of shade in the summer and sunlight in the winter and natural ventilation and natural heat. This represents yet another reason for hope.